in all the years that we've had a gas car, petrol, gasoline, diesel, whatever you want to call it, how many times in that period have you ever said to yourself, oh, I wonder how many miles I can get out of my tank tomorrow because I'm going to go on a drive? I don't know about you, but I've never thought that at all. I've never actually thought about, oh, I wonder how many miles I can get out of a tank of gas. Because you just say to yourself, well, I'm just going to go and put some petrol in it. So what I do these days is I will drive to my local Costco because the gas there is cheaper, and they also use what's called top tier gas. So it actually has more detergents and additives in it than standard gas at a normal, nameless gas station. So that's why I go to Costco. And a lot of other people go there, and whenever I go to Costco, there's usually always a line. There's usually always 10, 15 minutes, sometimes more, depending on the price of gas. If it comes down, then there's always big queues. And if it's really busy Costco, then it's always going to be busy there. So I would say it takes me about 15 to 25 minutes once I've got in line, waited, got out, gassed, and got out, because the car in front of me takes a while sometimes. So anyway, we all sit there with the engines running for like 10, 15 minutes on average. That's just about gas in your car at Costco before you go on your trip, or you're just filling up for the week, or you're just topping up, whatever. So not once have I ever sat in there in that line thinking to myself, I wonder how much gas, I wonder how many miles I'll get out of this tank. We all know roughly. Now the thing is, my car is really poor in town. And on the freeway I can get about 25 to 27 depending, but usually I'm getting around about between 18 and 21 miles per gallon going around town. That's your usual groceries, driving around, going here, there, going to have dinner, whatever, because I don't really go very far. I'm lucky I have a ton of stuff on my doorstep here in Richmond, Virginia, and I don't need to go very far. Occasionally I'll take a trip up to Washington DC, which is about 2.5 hours. Usually I think I can get there and back on one tank of gas. I did last time, although it was close. I'm trying to remember now, did I actually fuel up? I might have done, I can't remember. I'll have to do it now, now that I've said it. So the reason I'm making this question is because when it comes to EVs, everybody's very concerned about how many miles you can get out of a charge and the amount of time it takes to fully charge one. So here's my question, right? So let's say you have the new, an example, Hyundai Ioniq 5, or you have the Kia EV6, or you've got a bit more money to throw around, you've got a Porsche Taycan. So all those cars have what's called 800 volt charging system, which means you can charge from say 10% to 80% in about 15-20 minutes. That's what it takes. Fully charged takes a bit longer because when you go from 80 to 100, it really slows down. But you wouldn't normally stand at a charging station and charge to 100% unless you've got that kind of time, and if there's no one in the line behind you. So otherwise you're standing there really upsetting people because you're like, oh, well, I must get another couple of percent, and they're like. But anyway, so my point being is that for 95 to 98% of us, we don't need to be worrying about range or even having range anxiety, because it doesn't really exist. Because if you're only doing 20, 30, 40 miles a day or 50 miles every other day, whenever it is you go out, you might even only do 10, 15 miles a week. You might do a couple of hundred. But if you're lucky enough to have a house where you can recharge at home, then you will tend to, whenever you get home and put it in your garage or down the side, just plug the car in. Now, a lot of people say, oh, but it's really expensive to get a wall mount. It's not really. They're coming down in price. Let's just say you can get one for about $500 on average. And that's off the top of my head, so I haven't done any, this isn't factual, but I'll look into it and I'll do another video and I'll post the cost of things as best I can. So let's just say it's $500 for the actual box. You might spend Another $300, $400, $500 having an electrician come in and actually fit it. Now it's worth having someone who knows what they're doing to fit that properly, because you're dealing with 240 volts and you want to make sure that that is not going to overload your main breaker panel. So that has to be done properly, and it's worth doing it. Now you might say, well, that's a lot of money. I mean, the cost of the EV up front is a lot of money. Now I've got to spend all that money on a wall charger. I mean, where does it end? So here's the deal. Yes, an EV is more expensive to buy right now than a gas equivalent car. That is true. However, prices have come down a lot recently. You can buy, with all the incentives and this, that and the other, and the state incentives, you can buy a Tesla Model 3 now for under $40,000. Under. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's a lot of money, $40,000, you think I'm rich? The average price of a car these days is actually more than $40,000 in the US in 2023. It certainly was in 2022. So bear that in mind. Cars don't come cheap anymore. The used car market is also really, really inflated. So you can't really buy even a half decent used gas car at the moment for cheap money. So let's all put those ideas out of our head. That's not a good enough reason to be anti-EV, because you can buy a cheap EV now. Nissan Leaf, Bolt, just do some research. You will find EVs. There are a couple of major online car dealerships. One ends in Max. Did I say that? I don't mind them. Look on there for electric vehicles and you'll see a whole bunch of cars, mostly Tesla Model 3s. That seems to be the popular used one at the moment, because EVs are so new, they haven't really started to properly trickle into the market yet. But they're starting to come, and they're good. They're very good. They're better than gas cars. They're cheaper to run than gas cars because you don't have to do any oil changes. Your brakes probably don't even need changing for, depends how you drive, but you might not need to change them for 100,000 miles, because a lot of these cars have what's called one pedal driving, or regenerative braking, which basically means you can slow the car down quite dramatically without using your brakes, and by doing so you'll actually put energy back into the battery. So if you have if you're coming down the side of a mountain, for instance, and you're just going to coast all the way down, whereas in a gas car, you'd always change up a gear and go down in a higher gear, so the engine's going to be wah, but it slows you down rather than having to sit on your brake pedal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's the reason why you go through so many brakes when you live in a hilly area. Just change up a gear, let the engine do it, engine braking. In an electric car, it's called brake regeneration. So the car will you can actually regulate the speed of a car going downhill and actually putting charge back into your battery. That's pretty cool. So that's a cool thing. Now, the cost of charging an EV. If you're lucky enough to live at home and charge at home, we all kind of live somewhere that we call home. But if you're lucky enough to charge there, then you're only going to pay, I think it's in Virginia here, Richmond, Virginia, it's like 14 cents per kilowatt hour. So let me get my calculator. Oh, it's on my phone. But let's say blah, 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 blah. It's about $10, $10 or $11 to fill your car from 0 to 100. We don't normally do that because we usually charge the battery to 80%. It's only when you're planning a long road trip the next day, for instance, that you would actually charge to 100%. So if you have a car with a range of 300 miles, you need that 300 miles because you need to get somewhere. Or you want to say, well, I'm going on a 200-mile road trip tomorrow. I want to get there and back without having to stop for charging. So that's fine. 100 miles each way. You'll still have 80, 90 miles in the tank when you get back home. The car actually does a very good job of telling you your range and what your range is estimated to be by the time you get back to your destination. So that works well. Most of those cars work really well. Tesla and Ford have very good systems for that in the Mach-E and all the Teslas. So if you don't have a driveway or you can't charge at home, then that's fine as well. Excuse me, getting a bit dry there, all this chatting. You go to one of the public charging networks, whether you're a Tesla driver, which will be superchargers, or an example, Electrify America, EVgo, those sort of ones. They're the two main ones. There's 4 or 5 different brands. But you go to one of those, and you can probably pay up to about 45 cents per kilowatt hour, which is a bit more costly, and it does put the price of charging your car up a bit. But if you work out how much that costs to fill your tank, and I say tank as in battery, how much it costs to charge a battery up. Imagine your battery is a tank full of electrons rather than gasoline. So when I say tank, I mean electrons. So when you fill your tank up with electrons, it might cost you 30 or 40 bucks. But if you're using gas, that same car, like your SUV or something, it often costs nearly 100 bucks to fill it up with gasoline. Diesel can be more expensive, but then again, you get a bit more range out of diesel. But it still kind of costs a lot more to put diesel in, even though you can go a bit further. The cost per mile ratio isn't always better. Depends on the vehicle and the way you drive. Now, for those other people saying, well, you can't tow with an EV, EVs are useless for towing. Kind of yes, they do drastically reduce the range, like they do when you use a diesel truck. You won't get your full 300 miles out of a diesel tank if you've got 5,000 pounds behind you. That's just not going to, science. Physics doesn't allow that to happen because you've got a greater load, engine's working harder, you're going to use a heck of a lot more diesel to tow that load. So your big Cummins that might do 250 miles on a full tank might only do 150 miles with a load behind you. So you have to go to the gas station more often. It's no different in an EV. You know, the Ford F-150 Lightning one of them has a range of 300 miles. You can tow a lot with that truck. Can tow more than your Cummins can, I think. I have to look into that. You truck guys will know more about that than I do. I'm just guessing here. But what I do know is that when you do try and tow something quite heavy, it does reduce the range quite dramatically, sometimes down to like 100 miles at a time, or even less, which means if you're trying to do a long distance, you're going to have to be going to chargers along the way. And the charging stations aren't designed for large trucks with large trailers. You can't just pull into one without unloading the trailer, so it really is a pain in the rear end. So that's not ready for us yet. Now, so basically, if you're towing heavy loads every day, stick with your diesel. There's a lot of kind of news going around, and people's opinion seems to be that our government is trying to force us all into driving EVs in the next 5-10 years. No one's forcing anything. What they are doing is they're trying to encourage people, because EVs are coming, whether you like it or not, whether you want them to or not, they're coming, they're on their way. In fact, they're already here. And every major manufacturer, plus a few new ones, are gearing up to transfer all their production, pretty much all of them, to EVs, because EVs are the future. Now, there are issues, there are teething troubles, but generally speaking, they're coming. And one of the biggest holdups isn't the fact that there's not enough lithium, or there's not enough cobalt, or there's not enough this, not enough that. There aren't enough chips. There's a chip shortage. There's a lot of brand new cars that can't be delivered to customers right now because they need chips to make their technology work properly. So that's one of the major problems right now. But come June, middle of this year, that's going to be pretty much up to date. I also know for a fact, I need some more water here, that I think from 2025 onwards, some of the Chinese automakers are going to be selling their cars here in the US. The Japanese car makers have fallen behind, like Toyota. They haven't got an actual all-new EV right now. They have an EV, the BZ4, but it's not particularly good, and it's actually based on a gas car. So it's like a half-assed attempt. They haven't really embraced it because they were talking about hydrogen for the longest time, which they thought was their answer to the making our transportation better. To be honest with you, it's a nice idea, but it has its shortcomings. It's also very expensive to make hydrogen. It's also very expensive to store it, and it's actually quite dangerous. But hydrogen, if anything, is probably better suited to heavy machinery like big semis and that sort of thing, which would really cut down pollution. However, hydrogen isn't happening, at least not yet. They've tried it and tried it and tried it. They've been piloting schemes, they've been building cars, they've had some in California for the longest time, but nothing happened of it. Nothing came of it because batteries seem to be the way forward. Now, there are pros and cons. Batteries are not the cleanest things to make, manufacture. There is a different type of, shall we say, mining. The oil industry is filthy, so don't be under any illusion that oil is better than battery, because it's pretty much not. The good thing about battery production is that it doesn't, the cars themselves don't have any emissions. So basically, in order to build a battery car, it probably uses about the same amount of greenhouse gases and carbon and all that sort of thing, about the same amount of pollution to build an EV as it does to make a gas EV. So with that in mind, you might be saying to yourself, well, so what's the advantage then? Well, the advantage is this: the longer you own an EV, I don't know if you can hear that noise, I think there's a guy next door with his motorbike, but the longer you own an EV, and the longer you drive an EV, or the more you drive an EV, the better it gets. Because the more you drive a gas car, you've got all that oil, all those oil changes, that oil just basically had to go somewhere. I don't even know where that old oil has been going for all these decades, because it's like over a century of used car oil, and I know not all of it gets recycled. It's mostly gets, I don't know what happens to it. Interesting, but it's probably very filthy, and people do pour it into their ground. They don't want to come and bother to take it down to the recycling centre. They just pour it down the drain, or they bury it in their yard or somewhere, which just pollutes the dirt, and it doesn't really go away, at least not for a long time. But with batteries, they are actually designed to be recyclable, and because of the way a battery for an electrical vehicle is built, they can be taken apart once their life is finished. Or if they get damaged, they can, the raw materials in those batteries can be reused. In fact, GM, Ford, and I can't remember the other one, another big, massive conglomerate, they've all actually built factories and are spending billions, millions at least, of dollars to build factories that do nothing but recycle. In fact, GM said that they had recycled all the batteries that they had just swapped out on that warranty claim for their Bolt EVs. And the EUVs, which had all those issues with, I think, 1 or 2 caught fire, which is why they did a massive recall. They put it right. They've changed all those batteries, or they're still changing them, but they're almost done, and they've recycled every single one of them to be reused in the future. So, I mean, GM have really got it going on. They really have. They've got some excellent vehicles coming out. In fact, they've got the new Chevy Blazer EV. They've got the new Equinox EV. They've got the Cadillac Lyric is already out, but very slow to be delivered, again because of the chip shortage. And they've also got the new Cadillac Celestiq coming out, which is the hand-built, super duper, really, it's about $300,000. You can imagine it's going to be pretty neat. I'll probably never own one, unless you get a used one day if they lose all their value. But they're beautiful cars. I mean, check out the Cadillac Lyric. In fact, whilst we're talking, I'll get one behind us. In fact, I won't do that because I've lost the screen and I wasn't organised for this, so forgive me. I can find it. Let's see, Cadillac. Let me clip on B-roll. There. So here is the, let me get out of your way a bit. That's the new Cadillac Lyric electric vehicle, pure electric. That's all that thing does, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Look at the back of it. You can't tell me that's not a beautiful car. My head's in the way of the decent video, but there it is. Fantastic car. And that is actually a real existing car made by Cadillac. It's sold out. The 2023 model is sold out, and they're struggling to deliver that. They're now taking orders for their 2024 model, which is going to be up to about 80 grand, between 65 and 80,000, depending on the trim and the levels of luxury that you want to go for. So, let me get out your way. It's a beautiful car. So anyway, I'll leave that playing in the background. I wonder if I can move my big head out of the way of this. There we go. No, I just need to be made smaller. and out the way. How about that? Anyway, so there's the Cadillac. It's a very cool EV. It has rear drive or all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive is like 500 brake horsepower, which is insane. The standard rear-wheel drive is 325, and apparently it goes nicely. It's a nice car. It's not like a rocket ship that doesn't pin you into the seat, but it does have a good bit of thrust, because all EVs feel faster than they are. They've got that really low-end instant power. I was out in my car the other day. I've got a Volvo V90 cross country with the T6, which is supercharged and turbocharged at the same time, and it has, I always thought it had a good bit of kick to it, but sometimes you put your foot down and there's like a second delay while the car's thinking, oh, what did I do? Oh yeah, it want me to go fast. So sometimes you get in the way of other traffic because you've got your foot on the floor and nothing's happening. With an EV, that just doesn't happen. The further you put your foot down, the faster it goes, and it's instant. It's if you've never driven an EV, I absolutely encourage you to go and drive an EV. Go to your nearest dealership, or CarMax. I don't really like advertising on here, but go to CarMax. They're one of the best. They usually have a good selection of EVs, at least one of them anyway. You can go there, you can test drive it, and you'll be amazed. Absolutely amazed. So go and do that, because if you haven't, it just means you don't really know what an EV is yet, and you need to know. You deserve to know, because they are the future. They are coming. They are already here. And look at this Cadillac. It's amazing. I tell you now, it's absolutely gorgeous. You don't want to miss out. Now, I think I've come to the end of this video, because this is going on a bit again, but really there is no real argument anymore for EVs cost too much, they cost too much to charge, and they take too long to charge. That's not the case. Because just to finish off one sentence, I think I didn't finish off that line earlier about the time it takes. Oh, I don't want to be standing out in the rain for 20 minutes waiting for my car to charge. Most of these cars have apps now. I mean, I know Tesla does, where you can watch Netflix, Spotify, that sort of thing. Sit in your car for 20 minutes with the heating on, because EVs don't have engines that run on an EV. So you can sit in the car with your heating on or your cooling on whilst you're charging up, and it takes you 20 minutes to half an hour, depending on how empty you are, and depending on how much charge you need. You might not need to get all the way up to 80% and spend the full 20-30 minutes there, depending on your car. I mean, again, the Kia EV6 and the Ioniq 5 and the Porsches, they all have 800 volts technology and a very fast charging rate, so you can literally be up to 80% in less than 20 minutes. Now, that's why I was talking about Costco earlier, because at Costco, you'll be in line 15-20 minutes waiting to get out and then get your card in. And I watch people, no one uses the tap thing. They will get their credit cards out, and it's like waiting for the machine, and then they put in their membership card, waiting for the machine, and it's like, if they're old or it's a bit bright, they can't really see, and they're like, oh, and then they're putting their number in. Made a mistake, let me put the number in again. Then it times out, so you've got to do it all over again. But if you just get your tap card, you can be in and out in no time, like me, because I always complain about people standing there for 5 minutes poking the screen with numbers, and they haven't even got any gas out yet, so that drives me insane. But anyway, just to wrap this up, questions in the comments in the comments. Ask me anything you like. Ask each other stuff. Be nice, be kind, or be blocked or be banned, depending on how nasty you get. There's no need to be nasty, just be nice. This channel is designed to build a community amongst all people that are interested in EVs, and even people that are scared of the damn things, because a lot of people are scared. If you look at the comments, it's like, EVs are this, you'll never catch me dead in an EV. Oh my God, you'll never catch me. Them demon maps. There's nothing to worry about. It's just a change. And I call my channel the Electric Revolution, because that's exactly what this is. This is the biggest revolution since the Industrial Revolution. And don't get me wrong, I'm not here to put anybody down, make fun of anybody, but you have to understand, whether you like it or not, these cars are here, and they're going to be more and more popular by the month. Mark my words. And some of your so-called favourite car companies will go bust. or they will change, or they will be sold out, or whatever. There will be changes because some of the legacy automakers, maybe Toyota, I'm guessing, they're in big trouble because they have not prepared themselves for what's coming. And the Chinese are building better, and I mean better cars than any of the Europeans are. In fact, a lot of the Chinese buyers turn their noses up now at the European stuff because they say, why to buy that crap when our stuff's even better? Let me tell you something, they're not wrong. So bear that in mind and don't write off Chinese because you think they're cheap and crap. They're not. They are better. And you'll be missing out if you miss that one. So anyway, be careful what you buy. Don't buy the cheapest piece of crap because you don't believe in it. Do your research. Watch this channel. Like, subscribe, share. But definitely like it and definitely subscribe. Anyway, I'm going to go now because this must have been going on for way too long. 26 minutes, good grief. I need to do 5-minute videos. Comments. Put your comments in the description. Comment below, tell me what you think. Do you like these long videos where I just ramble on for ages, or do you actually like to rather have me focus on something for 5 minutes and that's it? Let me know. Over and out. Thank you for watching.